Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Very excited for today's guest. We have a social psychologist and a leadership strategist who she helps leaders reset their emotional understanding so they can achieve their goals. Very excited to be rocking out today with Kinga Mnich. Kinga, are you ready to rock?
Yeah, hi Tim, I am.
Awesome. Good. So we always start off here on a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
One of my favorite stories is actually a story from last year, the moment when everything started shutting down and the world went a little bit into crisis. And people started really reaching out, and companies started reaching out of nowhere without having done any marketing, without having, labeled myself in any specific direction, and just asking me for support. And I started working with one company that really managed to shift over their entire business from working in a store to working remotely, and then shifting their team also to 100% remote work. And that was surprising in such a way that I didn't even know how much I learned in the past 10 years of working remotely. And it was surprising also, how quickly people can adapt and how much success we can achieve if we are really working together, and someone is really allowing you to kind of infiltrate almost their business and say, okay, you know what, this is what you've been doing, but this is now how we need to do it.
Right
Yeah.
on. Yeah. So it's amazing how things just kind of got turned upside down with the whole pandemic, because people all of a sudden ended up, having to go home and work where they're not used to actually being in that mindset. And so, it's really, important to have people like you around there that can actually help us to get around those challenges. So that's awesome that you're able to be positioned well for that. But now, on our journey through this minefield, every once in a while we hit some bad notes. So I'm wondering, can you share, maybe something that didn't go according to plan and how we can avoid that?
Sure. And so, I've been thinking about that actually a lot, and just trying to really see what hasn't gone according to plan. And it's not such an easy question, honestly. And it's not that easy for me to answer it in such a regard, because retrospectively, everything went accordingly. Not the plan, but the way it should, should be. Because sometimes we go into situations and things happen and we get really angry about it and it doesn't work. I mean, really, I think last March was the toughest time for me in business. And I started my business when I was 20. So that was almost 17 years ago. That's when I started my very first business that was already remote. And last year was really the year where I thought, everything is going to go down somehow. And I don't know why it was like that, but I mean, maybe it was a general, situation. And so in the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, I lost 70% of my contracts. It was just so many people went into, that panic mode of not knowing what's happening. And so, of course, I am offering team trainings. I'm working with leaders on their own mental health, on, how to become better leaders. That's the first thing that you really cut out, because it's not necessarily in order to continue running your business. And that was really difficult for me in such a way to deal with it, because it was new, I haven't experienced anything like that before. And that's the reason why I'm saying, it was also then surprising to see how it turned around without me actually really doing anything, because I was sitting at home observing what was happening, just kind of also scanning my team and checking. I'm like, do I have to, let go of someone? How am I going to pay certain costs? Now, being really happy about the fact that my overhead costs have been always pretty minimal, because I've been working from home and my team has been always virtual. So there is no rent, not having to deal with any of that. That was, very positive. And honestly, the only way that I was able to stop myself from going into full anxiety mode was, okay, you know what? You have 60 months of savings, that's kind of like my way of dealing with situations like that. So this is going to help you to, be able to move through a good period of time before you really have to come up with the worst case situation. So yeah, it's really that moment. I mean, there were other moments maybe in the past years, where there were close calls or things didn't go through the way I wanted it, but nothing extraordinary. I would say it's things like setting up the right contracts with clients. When you're working from home, sometimes it seems as your business is casual. Like, it took me a while to establish the seriousness of my business with my family, and friends, and making them understand that I don't have the entire day time, that I am working indeed at least 40 hours a week, even so quite often actually more than that, right? Because it's your own business and you are at home, and the business is kind of like almost all the time in front of you. So maybe that is actually a good obstacle, that I had to really overcome, is to establishing how serious my business is.
Yeah. I totally understand. And I mean, we've been working from home for a lot longer than most people. I think nowadays, especially with COVID, there's a lot of people that have gotten used to that now, that, working from home is actually a thing, because maybe people now aren't going to have to, come up with that obstacle. But back when we first started, for sure, I mean, people just didn't understand it. You're at home, what? You can't help me move? Like, but yeah, there's a couple of things that I wanted to focus on what you just said. Like, so number one is that you have managed to keep your overhead costs low, and you also were able to save some money so that, if something were to happen. Because I mean, that's the thing, is that this particular pandemic was something that really caught everybody off guard. However, over time, every one of us is going to have some sort of thing that's going to hit us that's going to be unexpected, and we're going to have to recover from it. It's just so happens that this one actually hit a lot of people all at the same time. But yeah, it is a good idea to have some backup plans. Now, when we're working from home, I mean, one thing that I like to talk about is the jam room, is just the home office, and trying to figure out how to set something up that's going to be very productive. So I'm wondering, you've got a lot of experience in this area, and you've got a virtual team. So can you give us some tips on how we can set up our home office to get the most out of it?
Yeah, sure. And that's maybe not the case for everyone. I worked now in the past months with several people that had different setups, and we had to restructure to see how we can do it. But of course, if you have the space to create an office, that's really great. I have a small room, it's my office, I'm able to come in, I'm able to close the door. And I didn't have the opportunity always to have my own office, but I always recommend people to create a specific corner in there. It can be in the living room, it can be in the dining room, it can be in the bedroom, wherever you have enough space, but really dedicate a specific area where you have a desk, and you should have a desk. There are also people that don't have desks, because, like, psychologically, it just gives you a different experience and feeling. Okay, I have a desk, I'm sitting down, now is the time when work starts. And when you're working from home, it's really important to have those dedicated areas where you can find rest, where you can eat. So don't eat at your desk, for example. I mean, and that's even a habit sometimes that people have to let go of when they are working in offices, right? Eating at your desk and not being able to pay attention to it and so on. But being able to really compartmentalize. Yes, the areas, the living areas in your home, to understand, okay, when I'm sitting at my desk and like my husband is passing by, or the kids are passing by, whoever, is around you, they understand, oh, he or she is right now working because they're at the desk, they are doing something. So it just gives, it gives you the ability to set boundaries without having to necessarily talk about that. And it helps your mind to, switch on and be like, okay, I'm in the work mode right now.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about that from a psychological perspective, because I think a lot of people, when they decide to start working from home, especially if it's their own business, they're kind of driven a lot by freedom and freedom of choice and, being able to do whatever you want to do and all that kind of stuff. However, we also have to keep in mind that we have some programming as humans that we can take advantage of. And one of those things is, like you say, when you get into an office, you tend to switch into a different gear. So why not use that to your advantage, right?
Yeah. And Tim, in that regard, I just remembered I had a mentor from Germany, and she said something to me once, and it was so simple but significant. So the German word for working for yourself, basically having, being your own boss, is selbstständig, which when you translate it into English, it means that you are working alone all the time. It's like, and it made me laugh because, she pointed it out. She said, if you don't set yourself a structure, that idea of freedom and being able to dedicate your work time whenever you want it to be work time is going to vanish very quickly, because your work is in front of you all the time, and you are carrying the responsibility of your work and your business, all the time. So, I love working for myself. I love working from home. I love being able to work remotely, and the same as you, right? That's the reason why you switched off. Like that whole idea of having to go to an office and then sitting in the office from 9 to 5, that it never resonated with me. I did it for a while just as a side project, but it didn't make sense for me, because working from 9 to 5 also doesn't make sense for me in such a way that I am generally pretty tired from 12:30 till 2, right? There's like, I like taking naps. I like taking every day a 15-minute nap. You can't do that in an office, but it makes me more productive. And I don't know what kind of routines you have built into, for yourself into working from home, but I'm sure that you have some of those routines as well.
Yeah. I think routines are absolutely essential. And it does take some time. I'm hoping that this podcast is going to help people to, maybe compress that time a little bit and go, okay, eventually you are going to have to get to a point where there's a routine. And the freedom, I think, and I've said this before, it comes from having the choice on what that routine is. But essentially, you are going to have to put in some time for your work. It just is what it is. You can't just slack off all day and think you're going to have success. So why not just set that routine in a way that, maybe you take advantage of where your creative time is, rather than being told that it has to be a certain, number of hours, right?
That's correct. And you know what? There's another thing. There was a really great study done where they compared the productivity output of different countries, and based, of course, on working from an office and working for a company. But that productivity study actually really underlined what people like you and I are trying to do and are doing. And it showed that people cannot be productive for more than 6 hours a day. So if you are in an office and you're working 9 or 10 hours a day, you are going to lose in between those 4 hours, right? And those 4 hours can be going to the coffee machine, talking to someone, people that smoke, going outside, having tea, whatever it is, because the brain, and here's the thing, the brain needs those breaks in order to be able to process and recover, recharge. Like, we are not able to have a constructive output for 10 hours consecutively. And with those routines, what we are doing is that you have the freedom to design, as you said, how you're going to be working, but also you have the freedom to understand your own biological rhythm. And the biological rhythm is, for a lot of people, very different. I like to wake up. I like to wake up very early and just work. because I know that the first 3 hours of the day, I'm super productive. I can write up to 3,000-4,000 words in the first 2 hours of my day. And then I need to have a break, right? I will take the dog out, whatever it is. If you're working in an office, you're not able to do that, except if you can take your dog to work. I don't know, but a lot of offices help you on that, so here's the freedom in working from home is giving you the freedom to live and create a healthier life. And I think that's where the beauty really is in it.
Agree 100%. Now, I mean, one of the things you mentioned before is working alone. And, fortunately, we live in a world today where, there's lots of ways that you can connect with people through our computers. And so we can actually assemble a band around us to help us get things done. So I'm wondering for you, like, what does your team look like?
Yeah. So I have currently 3 people working almost full-time in my team. And I have 2 external consultants that are helping me out. The last 2, they don't do active work for me. Well, no, that's actually also not right. They are trying to help me to grow my business, so it's and the other 3 members are all over the world. I have someone that is in Spain. I have another team member that is in South Africa, where I lived before, so I actually know her personally. And I have a 3rd team member that is currently in the Philippines. And I am sharing her actually with a psychologist as well. So I found her. She is amazing, and I couldn't. Just didn't have full-time work for her, and so I recruited someone else, and I'm like, how about we hire her, and you get her for half the time and I get her half the time. I found her by coincidence. I was talking to someone from the Philippines to do a funnel for me, and I found her on Instagram, and then she wasn't the right person, and she recommended me someone else and we jumped on a Zoom call, had a great conversation. I was able to look her up on LinkedIn. I was able to just really verify that the experiences that she was talking about, that she really had them. And and then she started working for me. Pretty simple. I think that's the really amazingness about the time that we live in, because 15 and even 10 years ago, it wasn't possible. It wasn't as easy as it is right now. It wasn't even as easy to pay someone, I mean, like having to pay someone that is somewhere in India or somewhere in the Philippines, or let's say they're down in Argentina. That was almost impossible. Nowadays, it's just so simple with all the different payment systems.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking a little bit before this interview about that. Like, I definitely have had some anxiety about hiring people for certain tasks that are way far away, like Philippines or India or something like that. And so I definitely understand how, a lot of people would be scared to do that. However, as you mentioned, I mean, the tools we have nowadays, I mean, like I did some checking around, same as you did. I went to the person's social media accounts. I found out how long that social media account was like in existence for, and then I checked some of the other work that they did, and then I got on a Zoom call with them so I could see their face, and then, like you say, for paying, I paid with PayPal. It took no time at all. I mean, and PayPal also has some protection on your paying. So, I definitely want to encourage anybody who's looking to hire somebody, if you can hire local and you can find the right people local, great. I mean, that's obviously awesome. However, if you can't, and you're needing something else, then there's people all over the world that can help you with that stuff, right?
So. Yeah. And you know what? And it's, I have even local people work for me now and then, depending on what my workload is and what I'm doing, and sometimes I need additional facilitators, for the work that I do. And if I'm doing something that's in person, it's great. Of course, I will take someone local. I'm not going to fly someone across the world just to do that. But it's really there are 2 different sides to the story, right? We are living in this weird world where we are on the one side saying shop local, but at the same time, we are coming out of a phase where we were believing in globalization and helping also people around the world. And I am very much into helping people around the world. So I feel like almost, like having a multicultural team that is also in different countries of the world, they learn from one another. So my team is all connected in a WhatsApp group. We have a WhatsApp group where, there is a little bit of, I have someone, actually I have a fourth team member. She is just right now writing on her PhD. So she's just supervising for me basically. And she is from the United States. She worked here for me and is now doing her PhD in the Netherlands. And they will exchange with one another. They will do work for me without me having to necessarily, request something, just because they know exactly what the workflow is. It's really incredible to see that. And on top also to see, how people overseas that don't have necessarily the resources to improve their life are now receiving those resources. Because yes, I'm not paying them what I would pay someone that is working for me here in the United States, but I'm paying them more than what they would earn, in their own local economy. So I feel like there is a balancing act, happening in it.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I mean, you can even just find that same thing. Like I'm in Canada, and like from the East Coast, I live in the East Coast, to the West Coast, the standard of living is totally different. Like, I mean, our cost of living is much, much less. So, someone can hire me from Vancouver and they could pay me probably less than what they would pay somebody in Vancouver. And I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that same thing exists around the world too. So, I mean, as long as you're finding good people and they're, honest and all that stuff, then yeah, I mean, what's wrong with changing someone's life around the world if it's also going to change your life too, right?
Yeah. And you know what, at the end, you said also that, you were a bit nervous about hiring someone that was overseas. And of course we are. And depending on who you're hiring and what, I don't necessarily hire people that want to be paid upfront, especially, especially for the first couple of hours, let's see how this is going, and then establish a relationship. I do always send out contracts, even though, let's be honest, I'm not going to sue someone in the Philippines if something goes wrong.
No.
Just that. But having a contract, having an agreement, helps us to establish also the value and the ethical base of how we are going to be working together. And then, as you had a Zoom conversation, I feel like through Zoom, and because we have all these virtual conversations, it's pretty easy to establish trust and see that person, and see also that it's just the person, that is sitting on the other side of the world. But I don't know, it's I feel it's much easier now to be able to do that than many years ago.
Agree. So speaking of those tools, I mean, there's lots of tools that people can use to get the most out of their business. So is there any other tools that you use to build your virtual teams?
So I have to say that, I was using Slack for a while, but I just found it a bit overwhelming in such a way that I have to already communicate with my clients through email and WhatsApp. And then I'm using G Suite, and then people want to communicate with you through LinkedIn or whatsoever. So after trying to use Slack, what we did, we simplified the entire system, moving into informal communication onto WhatsApp, having once a month a meeting online through Zoom, because even though we are not in the same room, the face-to-face time is just really important. Also, you can have then casual conversations that just build a team a little bit better, because I do want to genuinely know, what's happening in your life, how are your kids, what's happening with your husband, or whatever it is. And we used some other complex tools and diverted back now and using just the G Suite, and have the tasks in the Google Sheets, right, which works basically like Excel. And I realized for me that the simpler it is, the better it works. The only thing that I need to ensure is that everyone has access to it, that the documents are shared. Same thing with one tool that I do love, by the way. I mean, that is Canva. I'm so sorry. Like I do have the entire Adobe suite, but like Canva was a huge change maker, and my entire team is in Canva. So I do, like it depends, of course, what kind of business you have, but I do a lot of social media outreach. I do have to create a lot of graphics. And for that, Canva is just amazing. And it's so great because the entire team has different skills. So we will have like 5 people sometimes working on one graphic. Yeah, and so that was an absolute change maker. But otherwise, I've really learned over the years, the simpler it is, the better it is. So I've given up on some of the complicated tools.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think simplicity, I mean, some of these complicated tools are fine. I mean, if they work for you, I mean, maybe your business calls for it. But yeah, the simpler you can go, the better. Because especially, onboarding new employees or new people that you want to work with. I mean, it's so much easier when you have a simple solution, right?
Yeah, and I do, and I don't know how you do it with the people that you work together, but I have a folder where I have every. So I did put the time into describing how each task needs to be performed. So let's see. If it's about posting, for example, a social media post that needs to be distributed across different channels, and we are using Plan, to plan some of the things out. So, which is like Planoly or Later Media or whatever, tool you want to use for that. But nevertheless, each of those tools always lacks one media, right? So either it can do Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest, or it can do LinkedIn and Pinterest, but it cannot do Facebook or whatever. So I've described tasks. I have task lists where it describes for everyone like, hey, this is what needs to be done. Generally, I'm not interested how people get there. I'm not interested in their process, and I am giving my team the flexibility that I am using for myself. And I think that's maybe something that is unique. I don't care when they work, and so they can work in the middle of the night, they can work, and of course we have now time zones, so that's the other thing. But I wanted to work for myself from home because I wanted to have that flexibility. So it wouldn't be necessarily fair for me to request from others to work specific times of the day. Yes, there are, like, I don't know, like 2 weeks ago, I was speaking at a big conference. And so I did ask one of them just to be, a little bit more accessible, to just keep their WhatsApp on, just in case there's something urgent and I need help with, or I can't find something. But besides that, my tasks are like, okay, by Friday, this is what I need as a result. Whenever you do that, however you do it, I don't care. This is the result that I'm looking for.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. And that's really good advice, to keep very detailed lists of the tasks and how they get accomplished. And you know what, that's a good thing for, even if you're a solopreneur, you're just kind of starting off. If the faster you get at defining all those things out, even for yourself, that'll make it so much easier to hire somebody down the road, because you'll have all those processes already ironed out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it starts with simple things that seem in the beginning annoying, but like having a branding document, right, where you have simply your colors, your fonts, like simple messages. How do we want to start an email? How do we want to end an email? So it's like that relationship building, the network building, the building connections, which is, for me, the base and the roots, and everything that my business is built on is on relationships. Like when you were asking, when things weren't going the way they should be going, and I had people, dissolve their contracts, I was able to reach out to my network and say, hey, this is what I need. And we've known each other for X amount of years or whatever. If you know someone that is looking for a specific task, please, connect me. And in order to be able to do that, you need to have a history of having done, favors, I guess, for others, right? Or having helped others without asking for favors back.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think I heard someone say, build your network before you need it, right? And then that's a good way to do it. And I mean, hey, if you're just getting started in your business, what you do have probably is time. I mean, you're building your clientele. You're probably out there doing some outreach. So why not use that time to help as many people as you can and create those relationships? Because eventually, then you're right, you will be able to go back to those relationships and use them, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is also, it's with that network building and how we use our tools. It's indirect marketing. People will remember who you are and what you do, especially if you connected them to someone else or to something else that has helped them in their business.
Yeah, agree 100%. So now it's time for your guest solo. So tell me what's exciting in your business right now.
So what's really exciting is I'm writing on my book. I'm writing on why emotions are your superpower, where I'm trying to really bring the last 10 years of research also into just one book. So I'm very excited about that. And I started working together with two other facilitators where we are really diving deep into team building and helping really startups to create their own virtual teams. So it's really, it's really interesting how everything is coming together and how things are turning around. But I studied in 2009 group dynamics and how to build virtual teams. And now, I don't think that a lot of people necessarily want to go back to work. I think that we are on a rise where a lot of more people are working from home and building their own businesses from home, but also a lot of people just realized during the pandemic that it's possible to have a little bit of a different life routine. And interestingly enough, I think that a lot of people also realize that there is a higher quality of life if you are not stuck in traffic for, every day for an hour or 1.5 hours, depending on where you live. And if you are able to build your own, routine. And so what I started offering together with two other people is helping teams and helping companies to create better virtual teams. Because at the same time, while we understand what the benefits are of working from home, we do also lack sometimes community and we miss people, right? I mean, it is sometimes funny to just stand at the water cooler, and just like have a joke and be able to do that. And through Zoom, with Zoom fatigue, that's a term that we do hear a lot. Like usually we jump on a call, we go through the task list, we check what is it that we need to do, but we forget to ask, hey, how is everything going? How are you doing? What kind of book are you reading, right now? Or did you see yesterday Top Models? Or I don't know, I overheard yesterday someone talking about the latest Bachelorette show. Whatever it is, it's like, it's not relevant for us, but it builds connections. And building those connections, creating the feeling of belonging, that is just sometimes something that we do miss when we are working from home. And that's really what, I'm trying to help right now, help leaders and teams really move back into it, build connections.
Wow, that is awesome. That is such a great resource for right now. So tell me, how do we find this?
So you can connect with me on any social media platform. I'm everywhere. You can find out more about this directly on my website, which is just kingamnich.com, or connect with me through LinkedIn, where you can also just see a little bit of the history of the things that I've done and see actually, why I'm actually qualified to do the things that I'm doing. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks so much, Tim. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
And I really appreciate your time and for having me on your show.
No problem. And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe, you rate, and you comment. And we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.